There are people who walk into any room, any meeting, any tense conversation, and somehow, without raising their voice, without pushing, without arguing, end up exactly where they wanted to be. The other person leaves feeling heard. You leave wondering what just happened. No one was forced. No one was beaten. And yet the direction of the entire exchange belonged to one person the whole time. You have met them. You have watched them. And quietly, you have wondered what they know that you do not. It is not charming. It is not manipulation. It is not some trick pulled from a sales book. It is a skill, a quiet, learnable, repeatable skill. And for the next 60 minutes, you are going to learn it. Sit down, get still. This one is going to rearrange the way you speak for the rest of your life. Chapter 1. The conversation you keep losing. Think about the last conversation that did not go your way. Not a fight, not a screaming match, just a normal exchange where you walked away feeling smaller than when you walked in. Maybe it was with your boss, maybe your partner, maybe a friend who somehow always twists the topic until you are the one apologizing for something you did not do. You replayed it in your head all night. You thought of the perfect line at 2 in the morning. You promised yourself next time would be different. And next time came, and you lost again. This is the trap. You think the problem is that you are not smart enough, not quick enough, not confident enough. So you read more books, you rehearse comebacks in the shower, you try to sound stronger. None of it works. Because the loss did not happen in the conversation. The loss happened before the conversation even started. Stop for a second. Think about this. How many conversations in the last month did you walk into already losing? The truth is, most people enter a conversation with one quiet goal. They want to be liked. They want the other person to not be upset. They want the exchange to end without conflict. And the moment that becomes your goal, you have handed the steering wheel to the person across from you. They do not even know they are driving, but they are. You walk in soft. You walk in scanning their face for approval. You walk in adjusting your words to keep them comfortable. And every adjustment, every softening, every quick agreement you did not mean is a small surrender. By the end, the conversation is shaped entirely around their comfort. Your needs, your point, your direction, gone. Watch yourself the next time you talk to someone you find intimidating. Watch how your voice goes up at the end of statements, turning them into questions. Watch how you laugh at things that were not funny. Watch how you back away from a strong point the second you sense a frown. You are not having a conversation. You are auditioning. Pause, breathe, be honest with yourself for 10 seconds. Is this your life right now? And here is the part that hurts. The people who run conversations are not better than you. They are not smarter. They are not louder. Most of them speak less than you do. They are just not auditioning. They walked into the room already settled, already clear on what they wanted, already willing to let silence sit, if silence was the truthful answer. That is the entire difference. And it looks like magic from the outside, because you have never seen it from the inside. You have been told your whole life that the loud person wins, that the one with the better argument wins, that the one who talks fastest, hits hardest, lands the cleverest line, walks away with the power. None of that is true. The loud one is usually the most afraid. The fast talker is usually the one trying to outrun a weak point. The clever line is usually a performance for an audience that is not even watching. Real conversational power is quiet. It is almost boring to look at. And that is why you missed it for so long. This is where most people stop. They hear this, nod along, feel a small spark of recognition, and then go right back to the same patterns tomorrow morning. They lose the next conversation. They lose the next 10, because awareness without practice is just entertainment. You watched a video. You learnt nothing. The reason you keep losing is not that you are weak. It is that you have been playing the wrong game with the wrong rules against people who quietly know the real ones. You have been trying to win the conversation. They have been shaping it. There is a universe of difference between those two things, and until you feel that difference in your bones, nothing will change. So get honest. Look at your last 7 days. Count the conversations where you spoke to be agreed with. Count the times you swallowed something true because the timing felt risky. Count the moments you walked out of a room and felt that small sour heat in your chest because you knew you had folded. That heat is not weakness. That heat is information. It is your own self telling you that you stopped speaking for yourself somewhere along the way, and you have been doing it for so long you forgot it was a choice. The first move is not to fight harder. The first move is to see the trap clearly, to stop pretending that the loss is bad luck, bad wording, or the other person being unreasonable. The loss is structural. You built it, and you can unbuild it. But before you can unbuild anything, you have to understand the invisible weight you are dragging into every single exchange. Chapter 2. The invisible weight you carry in. You do not enter conversations empty. You enter them carrying something heavy that the other person cannot see, but can absolutely feel. It is in your posture before you sit down. It is in your tone before you finish your first sentence. It is in the small pause you take after they speak, the one where you are not thinking about what they said. You are scanning for whether they liked what you said. You are carrying weight, and that weight is deciding the outcome long before any actual words start to matter. Most people call this nerves. That word is too small. Nerves come and go. What you are carrying is older than nerves. It is a stack of every time you spoke up and got punished for it. Every time you asked a question and were made to feel stupid. Every time you stated an opinion, the room went cold. Every time a parent, a teacher, a boss, a friend taught you, in some small moment, that your voice was inconvenient. You did not throw any of that away. You stacked it, and now you walk into a Tuesday afternoon meeting, hauling 20 years of it on your back. Stop for a moment. Picture the last time your stomach tightened before you had to say something hard. That tightness is not random. That is the weight talking. The truth is, the person across from you is not reacting to your words. They are reacting to the weight. They feel it the second you sit down. They do not know what it is. They might not even like the feeling, but their nervous system reads yours and adjusts. If you walk in apologizing for taking up space, they will treat you like someone who does not deserve much of it. If you walk in braced for rejection, they will sense the brace and start looking for the reason. People do not give you what you ask for. They give you what you signal you expect. And the worst part of the weight is that it makes you talk too much. Watch a person who is carrying a lot. They over-explain. They give context no one asked for. They justify a small request with 3 paragraphs of reasoning. They laugh at the end of their own sentences to soften the impact. They apologize for things that were not wrong. Every extra word is them trying to manage a fear they cannot name. And every extra word reduces their authority by another small percentage. By the end of a 5-minute exchange, they have given away the entire room without realizing. Pause. Listen to yourself the next time you ask for something simple. Count the words you use. You will be shocked. The people who run conversations have done something very specific. They have not become fearless. They have not become cold. They have learned to set the weight down before they walk through the door. Not throw it away, not pretend it does not exist. Just set it down, outside. So that when they sit empty-handed and clear-eyed. They are not auditioning because there is nothing in their hands to defend. This is where most people stop. They think the answer is confidence. They try to fake confidence. They puff up their chests. They over-rehearse. They walk in, performing a version of certainty that anyone with a working nervous system can spot from across the room. Performed confidence is just weight in costume. It is heavier than the original, and it cracks the second any real pressure arrives. Real lightness is different. Real lightness comes from one quiet act. You decide before the conversation starts that you can survive any outcome. You can survive being disagreed with. You can survive being misunderstood. You can survive a frown, a long silence, a no. You can survive someone walking away. Once you actually believe that, in your body and not just your head, the weight slides off your shoulders on its own. You did not need a technique. You needed a permission slip you forgot to give yourself. Think about how much of your talking is survival behavior, how much of your warmth is strategic, how much of your agreement is reflex. Is this your life right now? Here is the heavy insight. The reason you cannot control conversations is not that you do not know what to say. You know plenty. The reason is that every conversation feels like a small life or death event to your nervous system, and you spend the entire exchange trying not to die. Of course you cannot lead. You are surviving. No one leads while they are flinching. You have to stop flinching, not by force, not by gritting your teeth, by doing the slow internal work of realizing that almost nothing said in any conversation will actually end you. The job will survive. The friendship will survive. Your reputation will survive. You will survive. And once that becomes a real felt truth, you become available for something you have never had access to before. You become someone who can listen without flinching, speak without rushing, and stand inside a hard moment without needing it to end. But to actually stand inside that moment, you have to understand the silent architecture that every conversation is built on, the one no one ever taught you to see. Chapter 3. The silent architecture of every conversation. Every conversation has a shape. You have never been taught to see it, so you assume conversations are random, that they go wherever the words happen to take them. They do not. Every exchange between two human beings has an invisible structure under it, like the steel beams inside a building. You see the paint and the windows. You miss the frame, and because you cannot see the frame, you keep redecorating rooms that are already collapsing. The frame has a name. It is called the frame for a reason. It is the unspoken agreement about what this conversation is, who has authority in it, what counts as a win, what counts as a loss, and what topic is actually on the table. Two people can use the exact same words and be in two completely different frames, and the one whose frame is stronger will walk away with the outcome every single time. Slow down. Let that sit. The words are not the conversation. The frame is. Think about a job interview. The frame is, I am evaluating you. The candidate who accepts that frame spends an hour proving themselves. The candidate who quietly shifts the frame to, we are both checking if this is a fit, ends up being chased. Same room, same questions, different frame, different life. Think about a disagreement with your partner. The frame might be that one of us is right and one of us is wrong. As long as you both accept that frame, the conversation becomes a courtroom. Someone has to lose. But if one of you quietly changes the frame to, we are two people trying to understand the same problem from different sides, the entire emotional temperature drops in 30 seconds. No one announced the change. The frame just shifted. This is the architecture. And most people do not even know it is there. The truth is, when you feel like a conversation is going badly, what you are actually feeling is that you are inside someone else's frame and do not like its shape. They are not louder than you. They are not smarter than you. They have just placed the conversation inside a structure that favors them, and you stepped inside without checking the walls. By the time you notice, you are already arguing on their floor, with their rules, defending a position you never meant to take. Pause. Think of a recent argument. Ask yourself one question. Whose frame were you inside? The person who controls the frame does not control it by force. They control it by arriving with one already chosen. While you are still figuring out what this conversation is, they have already decided. And whoever decides first, whoever arrives most certain about the shape of the exchange, sets the architecture for everyone else. The rest is just decoration. This is why some people seem to bend rooms around them. They do not bend rooms. They walk in, already inside a frame so clear and so calm that everyone else slides into it without realizing it. They are not pushing. The frame is doing the work. They are just standing inside it. Now hear this carefully. You can do this too. You are not missing some rare gift. You are missing a habit, the habit of asking yourself, before you open your mouth, one quiet question. What is this conversation actually about, and what shape am I willing to let it take? That single question, asked silently before you speak, will change more about your conversational life than any technique you have ever read, because most people never ask it. They just react to whatever frame is handed to them. Someone walks up angry, they get defensive. Someone walks up needy, they get caretaking. Someone walks up dismissive, they get small. They do not choose, they mirror. And mirrors do not lead, mirrors reflect. This is where most people stop. They hear about frames, get excited, and then try to control the frame by getting louder or more clever. That is not frame control. That is just a louder mirror. Real frame control is silent. It looks like patience. It looks like a person who heard the provocation, did not flinch, and answered from within their own structure, instead of stepping into the other person's. The other person can feel it. They cannot name it, but they feel that their pull did not pull you. And in that one tiny moment, the architecture shifts under their feet. You have to start seeing the beams. In every conversation today, ask yourself quietly, what shape is this person trying to put me in? Are they trying to make this about being right, about being approved of, about being the one who carries the weight? Just see it. You do not have to fight it yet. Seeing it is already most of the work, because once you can see the frame, you can stop accepting frames that do not serve you. You can stop arguing within structures built to make you lose. You can stop performing inside rooms whose dimensions were chosen by someone else's fear. And once you can do that, you are ready for the single most powerful move in any human exchange, the one that costs nothing and changes everything. Chapter 4. The question that shifts the room. There is a sentence that ends arguments. It is not a comeback. It is not clever. It does not win in any way you have been taught to recognize as winning. It is a question, a simple, calm, almost boring question, asked at the exact moment the other person expected you to push back. And in the half-second after you ask it, the entire shape of the room changes. The person across from you stops being on offense. They have to think. And the moment they have to think, the conversation is yours. Most people do not understand questions. They think questions are weak. They think the strong move is to state, to declare, to assert. So they fire opinions at each other like bullets and wonder why nothing ever changes. Two people exchanging declarations is not a conversation. It is two monologues happening in the same room. No one is leading, no one is following. Everyone is performing. The truth is, the person asking the questions is always the person leading the conversation. Always. Not sometimes. Always. Stop and think about that. Every interview you have ever seen, every great teacher, every quiet executive who somehow steered a board meeting without raising their voice, they were not the ones with the longest speeches. They were the ones with the sharpest questions. The questions did the work. They just held the room while it happened. But not all questions are equal. There is a kind of question you have been asking your whole life that gives away your power, and a kind you have almost never asked that takes it back. The weak question is the one that seeks permission. Does that make sense? Is that okay? Do you agree? Every one of those is a small bow. You are handing the other person the authority to validate you before you have even finished your thought. By the end of an exchange built on those questions, you have bowed 30 times. No wonder you walked out feeling smaller. The strong question is the one that opens a door the other person did not know was there. What would have to be true for that to work? What outcome are you actually hoping for here? When you say that, what do you mean exactly? Help me understand the part where each of those questions does something specific. It does not attack. It does not retreat. It calmly asks the other person to step into a clearer room with you. Most people cannot, and that is the secret no one tells you. Pause. Read that again. Most people cannot answer a real question because most people have never been asked one. When you ask a vague person what they specifically mean, you do not embarrass them. You expose them to themselves, often kindly, often slowly. They start to hear the gaps in their own thinking out loud. They start adjusting in real time. You did not have to argue. You did not have to correct. You asked a question and held the silence while they did the work. That is leadership. That is the whole game. Take a breath. Is this your life right now? Or are you still firing declarations at people who are firing them back? Watch what happens when someone insults you. And instead of defending, you simply ask, what made you say that? They expected a fight. They prepared for a fight. Now they have to explain themselves to a calm adult, and the entire emotional weight of the moment has just been handed back to them. They might soften. They might double down. It does not matter. You did not absorb the hit. You held up a mirror and asked them to look at it. The room belongs to you now, even if neither of you ever says so. This is where most people stop. They try this once, the other person reacts badly, and they conclude that questions do not work. Questions always work. What did not work was your timing, your tone, or the fact that you asked the question to win rather than to understand. A question asked as a weapon is just an attack with a question mark. People can tell. The question that shifts the room is asked from genuine curiosity, even when the topic is hard. Especially when the topic is hard. There is a specific kind of question you should start practicing right now, in every conversation you have for the next 7 days. It is the clarifying question. Anytime someone says something vague, sweeping, emotional, or accusatory, you respond with one calm sentence. Can you say more about what you mean by that? That is it. That is the whole move. You will be amazed at how often the other person cannot. You will be amazed at how often they walk themselves backward into a position more reasonable than the one they started with. You did not push them there. You held the door open. They walked through it on their own. Slow down here. Land this. The person asking the calm question is never the loser of the conversation. The person who has to keep explaining themselves is. That is the law. It does not change because of titles, volume, or how angry someone gets. The questioner leads, always. Once you understand this, you stop fearing hard conversations. You stop rehearsing comebacks at 2 in the morning. You stop trying to be impressive. You start carrying one simple tool everywhere you go. The willingness to slow down and ask instead of swing. But the question is only half of it. Because the other half, the part that almost no one in your life has ever learned, is what you do with the silence that comes after. Chapter 5. The Power of the Pause. There is a sound louder than any voice in the room. It is the sound right after you finish speaking, when no one has answered yet. The sound of a held breath. The sound of someone deciding whether to push or yield. The sound of the air itself rearranging. Most people cannot stand that sound for more than 2 seconds. They rush in and fill it. They explain again. They soften what they just said. They laugh nervously. They throw away the entire weight of what they said by refusing to let it land. You have done this 1,000 times. You said something important. The other person paused, and before they could even respond, you reached in and pulled your own statement back, watered it down, added a maybe, added an of course I could be wrong, added a smiling apology for having an opinion at all. The silence scared you, so you killed it, and with it, you killed the power of your words. Stop. Picture the last time you walked out of a room thinking, why did I add that last sentence? That is the pause you lost. The truth is, silence is not empty. Silence is full of weight. The weight of what was just said. The weight of who has to speak next. The weight of a decision being made in real time. And the person who can sit calmly inside that weight, without flinching, without softening, without filling, is the person who wins the moment. Listen to recordings of skilled negotiators, skilled therapists, skilled leaders, and you will notice something strange. They speak less than the people around them. They leave gaps, sometimes long ones, 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10. To you, that sounds like an eternity, because you have been trained your whole life to treat silence as failure. To them, silence is the actual workspace. It is where the other person catches up to what was said. It is where the other person reveals themselves. It is where the real conversation happens, underneath the words. Pause now. Read no further for 5 seconds. Just feel what 5 silent seconds is like. How was that? Did you feel the urge to skip ahead? That urge is the exact one that has been costing you conversations for years. The inability to sit, the need to move, the discomfort with a moment that has not yet been resolved. People who can sit do not just look more powerful, they actually become more powerful because the other person, unable to tolerate the same silence, fills it with information, concessions, true feelings, real positions. They give themselves away. You did not pull it out of them. You let the silence pull it out of them. This is where most people stop. They hear, just pause more, and they try to weaponize silence. They go cold. They stare. They make the silence feel like a threat. That is not the pause. That is a tactic, and people feel tactics from a mile away. The real pause is warm. The real pause is patient. It does not say, I am punishing you with my silence. It says, what you just said deserves a moment of real consideration, and I am giving it one. There is no contempt in it. There is just presence. You learn this in your body before you learn it in your head. The next time someone says something to you that would normally trigger an instant reply, do one thing. Breathe in, breathe out, then speak. One breath, that is all. To you it will feel like an hour. To them it will look like calm authority. They will start watching their own words more carefully because they can feel that yours are not coming cheap. The truth is, words you give cheaply are words taken cheaply. If you fill every silence, your words become background noise. If you pause before you speak, every sentence you offer carries weight by default. Same words, different gravity. Think about the most respected person you have ever met in your life. Not the loudest, the most respected. The one whose opinion changed the room when they finally gave it. I almost guarantee you they were a person who spoke less than everyone else, and when they did speak, the room got quiet. They did not earn that by talking more. They earned it by talking less, and by being completely comfortable in the spaces between. Is this your life right now, or have you been giving your words away for free for years? The pause does something else too. It protects you from yourself. Most of the worst things you have ever said in a conversation were said in the first 2 seconds after being provoked. The cruel line, the defensive snap, the over-apology, the unnecessary confession. None of them came from your real self. They came from the panicked part of you that could not tolerate one more second of unresolved tension. If you had paused, even for one breath, the better answer would already have been waiting beneath the surface. You just did not give it time to surface. Discipline in a conversation is not about controlling the other person. It is about controlling the half-second between stimulus and response. That half-second is your entire life. Inside it lives every regret you have ever had about something you said. Outside it lives the person you actually want to be. And once you can hold that half-second, every single time, you stop being someone who reacts to conversations and start being someone who shapes them. You become unhurried, unrushed, almost slow, and slow, in a world of fast talkers, is its own kind of power. But silence and questions only carry you so far, because sooner or later the conversation will turn against you on purpose. Someone will push, someone will provoke, someone will try to pull you out of yourself, and what you do in that exact moment will decide everything. Chapter 6. The Discipline of Not Reacting. Someone is going to try you this week, maybe at work, maybe at home, maybe in a comment, a tone, a small dig dressed up as a joke. They will say something, consciously or not, designed to pull you out of your center, to make you defend yourself, to make you snap back, to make you prove something. And in that one moment, everything you have learned about questions, frames, and pauses will be tested, because none of it matters if you cannot hold yourself when someone is actively trying to move you. This is the real work, not the calm conversations. Anyone can lead a calm conversation. The work is what you do when your chest gets hot, your stomach tightens, and a voice inside you starts screaming to respond right now. That voice is not your friend. That voice has lost you more conversations than any opponent ever has. Stop. Think of the last time you snapped at someone and immediately regretted it. That regret is the price of not having this skill yet. The truth is, most of the people who provoke you are not powerful. They are uncomfortable. They are carrying their own weight, and they are trying to make you carry some of it for them. The dig is not an attack. It is an invitation to lower yourself into their state, to match their tension, to join them in the small, unhappy room they stand in. And almost every time, you accept the invitation. You walk right in. The discipline of not reacting is the discipline of declining that invitation, calmly, every single time. This does not mean being passive. This does not mean swallowing things that matter. It means refusing to let someone else choose the moment you respond. They want you to react in 2 seconds. You decide to respond in 20. You decide to respond tomorrow. You decide not to respond at all. The choice is yours, and reclaiming it is the beginning of real conversational power. Pause. Breathe. This simple step is key to distinguishing reacting from responding, helping you stay in control during conflicts. Watch people in heated exchanges, and you will see something almost universal. The moment they are provoked, their face changes, their voice changes, their posture changes. They become a different person in less than a second. That speed is the tell. That speed is the leak. Anyone with eyes can see that they have just lost control of themselves, and from that point on, no matter what they say, they are no longer being taken seriously. They are being managed. The disciplined person does the opposite. Provoked, they slow down. Their voice gets quieter, not louder. They take a breath the other person did not expect. They do not match the energy. They refuse to be tuned by someone else's instrument. And the provocateur, expecting fire, finds stillness and starts to feel ridiculous without anyone telling them they should. This is where most people stop. They think non-reaction means being a stone, going silent, going cold. That is not it. That is just suppression, and suppression always leaks. It leaks out a week later in a sharp tone over something small. It leaks out at night when you cannot sleep. It leaks out in your body. Real non-reaction is not suppression. It is processing. You felt the hit. You let yourself feel it. You did not pretend it did not happen. You just refused to let the first wave of feeling do your speaking for you. There is a small practice that will change your life if you do it for 30 days. Anytime someone says something that triggers you, before responding, say one quiet sentence to yourself. Not now. That is it. Not now. It does not mean never. It means not in this hot half second. It means I will come back to this when I am the one driving, not when the heat is. You will be shocked how many fights you avoid. You will be shocked how many of those fights, when you return to them an hour later with a clear head, were not even worth having. The truth is, the people who control conversations are not the people who never feel triggered. They feel everything. They just refuse to be operated by it. They have built a small sacred gap between feeling and speaking, and inside that gap they choose, not react, choose. Take a slow breath. Think about how many of your worst moments came from refusing yourself that gap. The other thing that happens when you stop reacting is that people start trusting you differently. The hotheads of the world get attention, but they do not earn trust. No one brings the real, hard, sensitive conversation to a person who explodes. They bring it to the one who can hold it. The one who heard a provocation last month and answered calmly. The one whose face did not change when the news was bad. People remember. They remember who can be steady when steady is hard. And slowly, without you trying, you become the person other people come to when something actually matters. That is real power. Quiet, almost invisible, and absolutely earned. Is this your life right now? Are you the one being brought the real conversations, or the one being managed around because no one knows which version of you will show up? The discipline of not reacting is not a personality trait. It is a practiced muscle. Every conversation is a rep. Every provocation is a chance to train. You will fail some of them. That is fine. You only need to slowly, over time, win more than you lose, until calm becomes your default and reactivity becomes the rare exception. And on the day that flips, you will not even notice. Other people will notice for you. They will start describing you differently. They will start saying things like, "You are hard to rattle." That sentence is a trophy, and it was not given to you. You built it. But there is one more layer underneath this, because not reacting is only the beginning. The next move, the one that turns a calm person into a quietly powerful one, is what you do when the conversation gets hostile on purpose, and you have to stay inside it without leaving and without losing yourself. Chapter 7. How to stay in the room when it gets hot. There is a moment in every hard conversation where you want to leave, not physically, internally. The temperature rises, the words sharpen, the other person says something that hits, and a part of you checks out. You are still sitting there. You are still nodding. But inside, you have already left the building. You are rehearsing what you will say later. You are deciding this person is not worth it. You are mentally writing a text to a friend about how unreasonable they were. The body is in the chair. The mind is in another country. That mental departure is one of your most expensive habits, because the conversations that actually change your life are the hot ones, the ones where something real is on the table, the ones where the relationship, the deal, the truth is being decided in real time. And if you leave the room while still sitting in the chair, you have forfeited the outcome. The other person, even if they are wrong or loud, gets to decide what this exchange becomes, because they were the only ones still in it. Stop for a second. Think of a hard conversation you mentally checked out of in the last year. Who ended up writing its ending? Probably not you. The truth is, staying in the room when it gets hot is not about being thick-skinned. It is about being present. It is about keeping your attention in the actual exchange, rather than fleeing into your head, where everything is safer and nothing is real. The fight or flight system in your body has two options it prefers. The conversational equivalent of fight is the snap, the raised voice, the cutting line. The conversational equivalent of flight is not walking out. It is dissociating while staying seated. Both are losses. Both leave the conversation to be shaped by someone who is still inside it. To stay in the room, you have to do something very specific. You have to feel the discomfort, name it to yourself, and choose to stay anyway. You notice the tightness in your jaw. You notice the heat in your face. You notice the urge to either snap or shrink. You do not pretend any of it is not happening. You just refuse to obey it. You stay, you breathe. You keep your eyes on the person. You keep your attention on what they are actually saying, not on what you are about to say back. Pause. Feel your body right now. How much of your day are you spending half present, mentally 3 steps ahead of the conversation in front of you? There is a quiet trick the most disciplined communicators use, and it is so simple it sounds like nothing. When the heat rises, they listen harder, not less, harder. They lean in, they ask one more clarifying question, they repeat back what they heard before defending anything. It looks like patience. It is actually strategy and discipline working as one, because the more clearly you can repeat what someone just said, in their own words, without distortion, the more the entire energy of the conversation drops. The other person, expecting a fight, feels heard. And being heard is the one thing almost no one in their life is giving them. So even when angry, even when hostile, they soften, sometimes against their own will, because their nervous system cannot sustain a full attack on someone who is genuinely listening. This is where most people stop. They think listening in a hostile moment is weakness. They think it is conceding. It is not. Listening is not agreeing. Listening is gathering information about exactly what is happening so that when you do speak, you speak with precision rather than panic. The person who listens the longest in a heated conversation almost always wins it, because by the time they finally respond, they know exactly what the actual problem is, while everyone else is still flailing at the surface-level version of it. There is also something deeper happening. When you stay fully emotionally present in the room, even when someone is being difficult, you change what is possible between you. You signal something they almost never get to feel, that you can be trusted with their worst version, that you will not flinch when they are at their most uncomfortable, that you will not punish them later for the heat of this moment. That kind of presence is rare. People remember it for years. Some of the deepest relationships of your life will be built on a single moment when you did not leave the room, even though most people would have. Take a slow breath. Land this. You are not trying to win hot conversations. You are trying to remain inside them as a whole person. The winning takes care of itself once you stop disappearing. Of course, staying in the room does not mean accepting every word that gets thrown at you. You can stay present and still hold a line. You can listen fully and still disagree calmly. You can hear someone out and still say, when they are done, that you see it completely differently. The point is that your no, when it comes from a person who actually understood what they were saying no to, not from someone who checked out at minute 3 and started reading from an internal script. Is this your life right now? Are you having real conversations, or are you having parallel monologues with people who, like you, left the room 10 minutes ago and have been performing for an empty chair? The longer you train this, the more you notice something strange. Hard conversations stop feeling as hard, not because the topics got easier, because you stopped fleeing them internally. You stopped adding the second layer of suffering, the one where you panic about the conversation while having the conversation. You start to notice that the actual content, even when sharp, is survivable. It was never the words that were destroying you. It was your own departure from yourself in the middle of them. This is the turn. This is where most of the work of conversational power is actually done, not in the clever line, not in the perfect comeback, in the unglamorous, almost invisible act of staying when you wanted to snap, staying when you wanted to shrink, staying when every old habit screamed at you to do anything but sit there and feel what was being felt. And once you can stay, you are ready for the layer that almost no one ever learns. The layer where you stop just surviving conversations and quietly begin to shape them. Chapter 8. Shaping without pushing. There is a way of guiding a conversation that the other person never notices. They walk out feeling like they made every decision themselves. They feel respected, they feel heard, they feel like the conclusions were their own, and in a real sense they were. You did not trick them, you did not steer them with hidden tricks. You simply created the conditions for their best thinking to surface, and you stayed out of the way while it did. They got the credit, you got the outcome. Nobody lost anything. That is shaping. That is leadership at the conversational level, and almost no one in your life knows how to do it. Most people, when they want a conversation to go somewhere, push, they argue, they sell, they pitch, they explain 3 times. They get louder when they sense resistance. And every push, every additional word of pressure, makes the other person dig in harder. This is basic human nature. People defend against being moved. The more you push, the more they brace. By the end of an hour of pushing, you have not moved them an inch. You have only confirmed for them that this conversation is a battlefield, and battlefields make people choose sides. Stop. Think of the last time you tried to convince someone of something important. How much pushing did you do, and what did it actually get you? The truth is, you cannot push a person into a real decision. You can only pressure them into a temporary surrender, and surrenders never hold. They reverse the moment the pressure ends. The decisions that stick are the ones the other person felt they arrived at themselves. Your job, if you actually want to lead a conversation towards something real, is not to drag them to the conclusion. It is to walk beside them on a path where the conclusion becomes visible to them, in their own time, with their own eyes. You do this with questions, with silence, with reflection, and with one more tool you have probably never thought of as a tool: genuine curiosity about how they got to where they are. Not fake curiosity, not the kind you put on so you can later attack their reasoning. Real curiosity. The willingness to actually understand why a person who is not stupid believes something different from you. Because here is what almost everyone misses. If a reasonable person disagrees with you, they have a reason. And if you cannot articulate their reason at least as well as they can, you do not yet understand the conversation well enough to lead it. Pause. Sit with that. Could you explain right now the strongest version of the opinion you most disagree with? If not, you have been arguing against a cartoon. No wonder you keep losing. Once you can hold the other person's view clearly in your own mind, something shifts. You stop needing to attack it. You'll be able to start asking questions inside it. Questions like, given how you see it, what would have to change for a different option to even be worth considering? Or, when you imagine going down this path, what parts still feel unresolved to you? These are not trick questions, they are doors. The other person walks through them on their own. And inside, they often find rooms they did not know were there. They find the doubts they had been hiding from themselves. They find the trade-offs they had not yet faced. They sometimes find that the position they were defending so hard is not actually the one they want to stand on. You did not move them. You held the lantern while they moved themselves. This is where most people stop. They fear that if they truly understand the other side, they will lose their own position. The opposite is true. The more clearly you understand the other person, the more solid your own ground becomes. Because now you are not standing in a position built out of their fear. You are standing on one you actually chose, fully aware of the alternative. That is conviction. The kind no one can knock you off, because it is not a reaction to anything, it is a decision. There is a quiet phrase that does enormous work in shaping conversations. It may sound like nothing, but try using it for a week and see what happens. Help me think about this with you. 5 words. They invite. They include. They flatten the hierarchy of who is right and who is wrong, and replace it with a shared problem on the table between you. Most people, upon hearing those words, lower their defenses without realizing it. They stop arguing against you. They start thinking with you. And once you are thinking together, the conversation will almost always find a better answer than either of you walked in with. Take a slow breath. Land this. Is this your life right now, or are you still trying to win conversations by being the smartest, the loudest, the most prepared, when the whole time the higher move was simply to think with the person rather than against them? Shaping a conversation does not mean abandoning your position. You can still have a goal. You can still know what you want out of the exchange. The difference is that you hold your goal loosely enough to let the conversation unfold, and you trust that if your position is sound, an honest exchange will reveal it. If it is not sound, you would rather know now. That is intellectual courage. Most people do not have it. They cling to their position because their identity is fused to it, and any threat to the position feels like a threat to the self. The person who can separate the two, who can say, I believe this, but I am not this, becomes almost impossible to manipulate, because there is nothing to attack. The position is just an idea they are holding. They can put it down, they can pick up a better one. Their self does not move. And in some quiet way, the other person feels that. They feel that they are not in a fight. They are in a process of thinking with someone whose self-esteem does not depend on being right today. That changes everything. They become honest. They become reflective. They often become the version of themselves you wished they could be all along. You did not summon that version with force. You created the room in which it could appear. This is where everything you have learned starts to braid together. Frames, questions, silence, presence, non-reaction, shared thinking. They stop being techniques and start becoming a way of being, a way of carrying yourself into every exchange. And the more you carry it, the more it carries you. The more it carries you, the less any single conversation can shake you. And when a single conversation can no longer shake you, you have crossed a line most people never cross in their entire lives. But this new way of being needs a new self underneath it. Because none of these moves will hold for long if the person making them is still the same scared, performing, approval-seeking person from Chapter 1. The skills are real, but underneath the skills, something deeper has to change. Chapter 9. Becoming the person who does not need the room. There is a quiet shift that happens inside you when you no longer need the room. It does not announce itself. There is no moment of victory. You just notice, one ordinary day, that you walked into a difficult conversation and your stomach did not tighten. You noticed the old reflex wanted to start, the rehearsing, the scanning, the small bracing, and it did not catch. It passed through you and out the other side, and you were still standing there, calm, ready, available. Something underneath has changed, and once it changes, almost nothing changes it back. For most of your life, you needed the room. You needed it to like you. You needed it to approve. You needed it to not be upset with you. You needed it to confirm that you were okay, that you mattered, that you were neither too much nor too little. Every conversation was a small referendum on your worth, and you walked into each one hoping the verdict would be kind. Of course you could not lead. You were the one being judged, or at least that was the story you were living inside. Stop. Read that again. Have you been living inside the story that every conversation is a judgment of you? Because if you have been carrying a sentence you were never given. The truth is, The room is not judging you. The room is mostly thinking about itself. Each person in a given conversation is mostly thinking about how they come across, what they are going to say next, and whether they look okay. You are doing it. They are doing it. The whole world is doing it. The audience you have been performing for has not actually been watching. They have been busy being their own anxious performer. And once you really feel that in your chest, not just your head, an enormous amount of pressure simply falls away. The person who does not need the room is not cold. They are not above it. They are simply done auditioning. They walked in already enough. They will leave already enough. Nothing said in the next hour will change that. So they can listen without protecting. They can speak without proving. They can disagree without bracing. They can be wrong without collapsing. The conversation is no longer a test of their worth. It is just a conversation. And, paradoxically, because they no longer need anything from the room starts giving them more than it gives anyone else. Pause. Let that sink in. The people who walk away with the most from conversations are the ones who needed the least going in. That is not a coincidence. That is a law. Think about what your life would feel like if you actually stopped needing approval from each person you spoke with. Not because you became arrogant, because you became settled. You would say the harder, true thing in the meeting. You would ask the question you have been swallowing for months. You would refuse the favor you have been resenting yourself for agreeing to. You would tell your friend the honest thing instead of the comfortable thing. You would stop performing warmth for people who never offered you any, and start saving your warmth for people who actually received it. Your relationships would not get worse. They would get real. This is where most people stop. They love the idea of not needing the room. They romanticize it. They post about it. And then they walk into the next conversation and immediately need it again, because the old wiring is still running underneath. The reason is simple. You do not stop needing approval by deciding to stop needing approval. You stop needing approval by slowly becoming someone whose own opinion is loud enough to drown out the room. That is built. It is built in the quiet. It is built in the moments no one sees. It is built every time you keep a small promise you made to yourself. Every time you go to bed at the time you said. Every time you do the work you said you would. Every time you do not look away from something hard. The truth is, people who do not need the room have a different relationship with themselves. They keep their own word. They trust themselves. They have evidence, accumulated over months and years, that they are a person who follows through. So when the room is unsure of them, it does not destabilize them, because their own internal vote of confidence is already cast and already strong. The room can like them or not. The vote is not up for re-election today. Take a slow breath. Be honest. Whose vote have you been campaigning for, and how long have you been campaigning? There is a simple, heavy insight underlying everything in this chapter. The reason you have struggled in conversations is not that you lacked the right words. It is that you were begging, with your tone, your posture, and your over-explaining, for the other person to give you something only you can give yourself. You wanted them to tell you that you were okay. They could not. They never could. No one in the entire world can give you that. And chasing it from people has only ever made you smaller. The day you stop chasing it is the day you walk into rooms differently, slower, quieter, heavier in the right way. Watch yourself this week. Watch how often, in small interactions, you reach for approval, like someone reaching for water, a laugh you did not need to give, a compliment you did not need to add, an agreement you did not actually feel. Each one is a small bow to a god that does not exist. You can stop bowing. You will not be punished. The sky will not fall. The relationship will not collapse. In fact, most of the time the other person will respect you more because they were quietly tired of you bowing too. Is this your life right now? Are you still asking the room to tell you who you are, when you already know, deep down, that the answer was never theirs to give? When you stop needing the room, the entire dynamic of every conversation in your life rearranges. You stop attracting people who feed on your need. You start attracting people who can actually meet you. You stop tolerating exchanges that once drained you. You start gravitating toward ones that build you. The change is not announced, it is structural. You simply become someone whose conversational gravity is generated from the inside, not borrowed from the outside, and from that point forward, you are no longer at the mercy of any room you walk into. But this still leaves one question, because skill changes how you talk. Independence from the room changes how you walk in. There is one final shift, the deepest one, that determines whether all of this lasts or quietly fades, and it has to do with who you decide to be when no one is watching. Chapter 10. The Quiet Authority of a Settled Self. In the end, no one talks like you do, not because of your voice, not because of your vocabulary, because of the self that is doing the talking. Every word you have ever spoken has come out of a particular interior, a particular set of beliefs about who you are, what you are worth, what you are willing to tolerate, what you are willing to say. Change the interior, and the words change on their own. You do not have to memorize lines. You have to become a person from whom the right lines naturally come. This is the work no book can hand you, the slow, unglamorous work of becoming someone whose center of gravity is so steady that no conversation, no provocation, no charm, no pressure can move it. People feel it in the first 10 seconds. They do not know what they are feeling. They cannot name it. But they treat you differently because of it. They lower their voice when you enter the room. They listen more carefully when you speak. They do not interrupt you the way they interrupt others. None of this is because you demanded it. It is because something in you stopped negotiating. Stop. Think about the people in your life who carry this. Did they demand respect, or did respect simply orient itself around them? The truth is, conversational mastery is not a set of techniques laid atop a fragile self. It is the natural expression of a self that has done its own work. You can learn every frame and every question and every pause in this script. But if you walk into the next conversation still hating yourself, still afraid of yourself, still uncertain whether you are allowed to take up space, all the techniques will leak. They will leak through your tone. They will leak through your eyes. People will somehow sense that the calm is borrowed, that the questions are strategy, that the silence is rehearsed, and they will lead you anyway, because the underlying self has not changed. You change it by living differently when no one is watching. The way you speak to yourself in your own head when you fail. The way you keep your space, your body, your time. The way you handle the small temptations to be dishonest, to overpromise, to perform. Every one of those private acts is rewriting the self you will walk into your next conversation with. People who are calm in public are not faking it. They have built calm in private, in 1,000 small, uncelebrated moments, until calm became their default state, rather than a costume. Pause. Slow down. Think about the gap between who you are in your conversations and who you are when no one is watching. The larger that gap, the more exhausting every conversation will be. The smaller the gap, the more effortless conversational power becomes, because there is no performance to maintain. You are simply being seen as you actually are. This is where most people stop. They want the outside without the inside. They want the calm voice, the controlling presence, the unshakable demeanor, without doing the interior work that produces them. So they imitate, they perform. They burn out within months, because performance is exhausting and life keeps throwing real tests. The settled self does not get tired. It does not have to. It is not performing. It is just being. And being is sustainable in a way performing never is. The settled self has done a few quiet things over time. It has decided what it stands for, in language clear enough to speak in a single breath. It has slowly chosen what it will and will not tolerate. It has built a relationship with its own discomfort, learning to sit with feelings rather than be run by them. It has practiced telling the truth in small moments, so that telling the truth in big ones is no longer rare or dramatic. It has stopped lying to itself about what it wants, what it feels, what it fears. None of that is loud. All of it is foundational. Once that foundation is in place, conversations stop being events. They become just things you do, with the same self you always are. The boardroom version of you is the same as the kitchen table version. The hard conversation version is the same as the easy one. The version being praised is the same as the one being criticized. There is one of you now. There used to be many. The many were exhausting. The one is free. Take a slow breath. Is this your life right now, or are you still running multiple selves, each one tuned to a different audience, none of them entirely you? The deepest authority you can have in any conversation is the authority of a person who is no longer divided, who does not have to remember which version of themselves they performed last time, who does not have to manage the gap between their inner and outer life, because there is no longer a gap. That kind of person can sit in front of anyone. They can be agreed with. They can be insulted. They can be praised. They can be ignored. Nothing reaches the foundation, because the foundation was not built on what anyone else thinks. You have been chasing power in conversations, as if it lived in the words. It does not. It lives in the person speaking them. Build that person, and the words will arrive when they need to. Neglect that person, and no technique will save you. You will sound clever for a year and tired for the rest of your life. The choice before you is not whether to keep learning new conversational tactics. The choice is whether to keep building the self underneath them. The skills are real. They work. You have just been given them. But the skills are a multiplier of who you already are. Multiply a fragile self by 10, and you still get fragility, just louder. Multiply a settled self by even a small number, and the effect is unmistakable. People feel it. Doors open, conversations resolve. Tension you used to spend hours managing simply does not arise. Slow down here. Stay with this. The conversation you have been trying to control was never the one you were having with the other person. It was the one with yourself, the one you have at 3 in the morning, the one you have when you fail, the one you have about who you are and what you are allowed to want. Win that one, quietly, in the dark, where no one will ever clap for you, and then walk into any room and watch what happens. This is what you came here to learn. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The one asking the calm question is leading, even when they look like they are following. Silence is not absence, it is weight. You cannot lead a conversation while you are still trying to survive it. You will not become unshakable in public until you have practiced being honest in private. The room is not your judge, it never was. Your real conversation is the one you have with yourself when no one is watching. Build that one. The rest will arrange itself. Think about every conversation you have ever walked away from wishing you had said something differently. The moment you replayed in your head for hours, the perfect response that came to you 5 minutes too late. That feeling of powerlessness was never about your intelligence or your worth. It was about missing the invisible structure that governs every exchange. From now on, you will see that structure. You will feel it while it is happening, not after, and you will step into it with the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands the game. That is the shift that changes everything, not just your conversations, your life. Here is the truth that will separate you from everyone else who listens to this. Most people will nod along, feel empowered, and then forget everything the moment they step into a real conversation. They will default to their old habits, talking too much, interrupting, explaining themselves into corners. But you have a choice. You can be the person who practices, who catches themselves mid-sentence and pauses, who chooses the harder path of silence instead of the easy path of reaction, who remembers that control is not about winning, it is about staying centered while others lose themselves. That person is rare, that person is trusted, that person is you, if you decide to be. So close this audiobook with this one thought. From this moment forward, you will never enter another conversation unprepared, not because you have rehearsed lines or memorized tactics, but because you now understand the secret that most people never discover, the secret that real control comes from within, not from the words you use, but from the calm you carry. That calm is not given to you. It is built, decision by decision, conversation by conversation, and it starts now, with this breath, with this moment, with the quiet knowing that you have finally learnt the code. The rest is just practice, and you are already ahead of everyone who hasn't even started.